Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today, I want to dig into something big that's unraveling in Canadian foreign policy, a development that's causing serious ripples not just at home, but across the globe. The headline is, Canada is evaluating its ties with Israel. That may not sound dramatic at first, but believe me, what this might mean, especially under Prime Minister Mark Carney, is a major shift. So, let's break it down together. First off, what just happened? On September 10th, Canada's foreign minister publicly announced that Canada is evaluating its relationship with Israel in response to a recent Israeli strike in Qatar. She called the attack unacceptable, especially given that Qatar has been acting as a mediator in peace efforts in the Middle East. The details of what evaluating means are still vague: potential diplomatic steps, maybe sanctions, maybe reductions in cooperation, nothing fully fleshed out yet. Now, why is this a big deal? Because this marks a notable change in tone and approach from the Canadian government. Under Prime Minister Mark Carney, who took office earlier this year, Canada has already started moving away from some of the previous government's positions. Over the last few months, Carney's government has recognized Palestinian statehood, criticized Israeli military actions as unacceptable, and taken a more outspoken line on protecting civilians in conflict zones. This isn't just a one-off comment, it's part of a broader shift. Carney seems to be steering Canada toward a more critical stance when Israel is seen as overstepping, especially in cases involving civilian harm, peace negotiations, or violations of international norms. That's a major departure from Canada's traditionally close alignment with Israel. Let's think about what evaluating the relationship could actually mean. It might involve a range of steps: reducing diplomatic engagement or recalling Canada's ambassador, freezing or rethinking trade or military agreements, joining international calls for sanctions or investigations, taking a stronger line at the United Nations or in peace talks. Right now, nothing concrete has been announced, but the mere fact that the Canadian government is openly questioning its relationship with Israel shows how serious this is. What's driving this? For Carney, there are clear motivations. He wants to reassert Canada's role as a principled, independent voice in global affairs. He's signaling that Canada will stand up for human rights and international law, even when it means challenging longtime allies. He's also responding to domestic and global pressure, since many Canadians are closely watching the humanitarian situation in the Middle East. But of course, there are risks. A diplomatic rift with Israel could weaken cooperation in trade and security. Canada might face backlash from allies who take a different stance. Carney could also face political pressure at home, since Canada has strong communities and interest groups with deep ties to both Israel and Palestine. Looking ahead, this shift could redefine Canada's foreign policy posture. If Canada moves from words into action, we might see new restrictions on trade or aid, louder calls for ceasefires, or support for international investigations. It could also reshape domestic politics, as parties and voters debate whether Canada should be more cautious or more assertive on the world stage. For Carney personally, this is a leadership test. If he follows through, it cements his reputation as a bold, independent leader willing to take risks. If he pulls back, critics will say the words were empty. Either way, Canada is already being seen differently because of this statement. Now let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. For decades, Canada has had a pretty consistent position when it comes to Israel. Successive governments, whether liberal or conservative, often emphasized Canada's special friendship with Israel. That friendship wasn't just rhetoric, it was reflected in voting patterns at the United Nations, in trade agreements, in military cooperation, and in diplomatic gestures. In fact, Canada built a reputation for being one of Israel's most reliable partners on the global stage, often backing them up even when other allies were more critical. But here's where things get interesting. Mark Carney is not just tweaking the tone, he's rewriting the playbook. By openly questioning whether Canada should maintain the same level of closeness, Carney is breaking with decades of tradition. That's why this feels so dramatic. It's not just about one strike in Qatar, it's about Canada signaling that the old rules of automatic support may no longer apply. And let's be clear, this isn't happening in a vacuum. Carney came into office with a message that Canada would be principled but pragmatic on the world stage. He's pitched himself as someone who won't just follow Washington or London, but someone who wants Canada to lead on issues of peace, climate, and international law. For him, standing up to Israel when its actions cross a certain line is part of projecting that image. It's Carney saying, Canada is back, and it's not afraid to speak its mind. Another fresh angle to think about is Canada's role as a bridge. Canada has large Jewish and Palestinian communities. Both sides are passionate, vocal, and politically active. This means Carney isn't just making a foreign policy statement, he's stepping right into a domestic political balancing act. If he plays it well, he positions Canada as a unique country that can engage both sides, mediate, and act as a trusted partner in peace talks. If he missteps, he risks alienating communities at home and fueling divisions. Globally, Canada's shift could open new doors. Countries in the Middle East and Global South that have long been critical of Western double standards are watching closely. If Carney follows through, Canada could gain credibility as a more neutral and principled actor. So here's the real question. Is Carney trying to position Canada as a middle power with moral authority, a kind of honest broker in a messy world? Or is this simply political theater, designed to grab headlines and distinguish himself from past governments? Only time will tell. But either way, what we're witnessing is the start of a major rebranding of Canada's global identity. So, to circle back, yes, this is today's news. Canada has openly said it is reevaluating its relationship with Israel. That's not something we've heard from Ottawa in decades. It signals a Canada that wants to balance strategic interests with humanitarian principles, and it shows Carney is willing to gamble politically to carve out a new role for Canada internationally. If you ask me, this is a story to watch closely. The next moves from Ottawa and the reaction from Israel will tell us how far this shift really goes. And of course, the question is, will Canada just talk tough, or will it actually act? Thanks for sticking with me through this breakdown. Now I want to hear from you. Is Canada doing the right thing by standing firm, or is Carney playing with fire in foreign policy? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want me to keep unpacking these breaking political stories as they happen.